Being in Sync. Today is day 4 of the Being in Sync 365 series. And today I finally figured out how to actually go live. so um, I hope that these videos start to grow in audience and support for people who want to become more aligned to greater insight and wisdom, because when we become more congruent, of course, life becomes exponentially better and easier, because then we can feel more peace. So today's topic is on problems. And one of the things that I started seeing a pattern of with many of my clients last year is they had a difficult time identifying problems. And the problem with not being able to identify your problems is, one, you can't even see your growth. You don't have any acknowledgement or awareness that you're making progress, number one. And number two, um, how do you know that you're having a higher quality problem if you don't know what your problem was to begin with? So, having a problem is really not a bad thing. The idea is that you have a higher quality problem. It's not that you have no problems, because we know that our lives are here. We're here on this planet to grow and evolve, and oftentimes we are conditioned to see those things that help us grow and evolve as challenges, obstacles, problems. All kinds of things. So you want to be able to identify your problems. So how I work with my clients is, obviously I see problems that most people don't see. I see patterns and incongruencies. I see people who have inner conflicts. I see problems that most people do not even know how to identify. That is not your job. Your job is to be able to identify your own personal problems. So, like, let's just start with relationships. You should be able to look at your relationships, whether you're married or in partnerships, or your friendships, or if you're working, your colleagues, your associates, and so forth. Like, how are those relationships? And then you would just kind of assess them. Do I have a problem with this relationship? Do I have a problem with this? And you go through, and then you get to your personal relationships, where there's always kind of, when it's personal, right? So you would look at what problems you're having with your personal relationships. So let's just say you and your partner have arguments. Arguments are part of growing in a relationship. Conflict is a part of growth. It's not all bad and it's not all equal. So what you want to do is have higher quality problems. I know with my marriage, my husband and I, we like congratulate ourselves when we really had a good argument that was like it wasn't dirty, it was productive. We were able to address the issue, we both agreed on the problem, because oftentimes you may notice in your relationships you don't even agree on what the problem is, and that right there is a problem. Right? It can be if you can't agree to disagree. I would say, after, 10, 11 years of being together, that us being able to identify and congratulate each other on a good argument is like huge progress. Because, we both want to grow. And that was like a real example of our growth together as a couple. Now, obviously, I teach this stuff, but this is not the world that my husband lives in every day like I do. So we both come at things very differently. Everybody is coming at things very differently. It is so important to just focus on the basics. So, what are the problems in the relationship? If it's communication, what aspect of communication? Because communication is broad. So, be more specific and clear. That would be exponentially helpful for any relationship. If you're having problems with relationships and you kind of look at all the problems, say you go through this exercise and you write down the problems for each relationship. Oh, this person's this way, or this person's this way, or I'm challenged with this. You may even notice a pattern in your relationships. Well, that's a pattern problem that can be addressed. So the whole purpose of identifying the problems is so you can note whether you're having a higher quality problem over the duration of your connection or relationship. If you notice, like, let's just say you start this year and you go through your career, you go through your health, you go through your um, relationships, you go through your finances, and you identify all your problems in all these areas, right, of your life, and you fully are clear on your problems, it is going to be, first of all, it's going to take the stress off of you, because part of stress and overwhelm is not really having an awareness or an identification of what the specific issue is. So being able to identify your problems takes the overwhelm out of the issue. Then you can see how just bringing in your awareness will help you to shift things naturally. And I think many of you will be surprised at what happens when you just become clear about what the problem is. Things around that issue start to shift and change when you have awareness to the issue. The other thing that you want to do is, you know, identify if it's a repeating pattern. And if it's a repeating pattern, then there's something within you that needs to shift, not the relationship, but the shift needs to happen with you and you. So, and then you want to see, hey, is this relationship having higher quality problems? Or are these the same problems that we had 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago? If that's the case, then you're not growing. You're not growing together, and you're not evolving, and you really need to sit down and have a discussion about what's happening in the relationship. The same thing at work. If you're looking at your career and you have these issues and these problems and it hasn't changed in 3 to 6 months, well, then you need to change your strategy. You won't need to change your strategy if you don't know what the problem is. Then you just stay in this repeating pattern, and you don't want to do that. So the first thing is always, always, always identify the problem. Second thing is to, after you've identified the problem, you want to start looking at, well, what are the potential solutions to the problem? And is there discussions that need to happen? Or if it's just you that has to change your approach. So when you have higher quality problems, you will know you are on the path to expansion. If you keep repeating the same problems, you can guarantee you're not going to get into an alignment or congruency with wisdom, with your heart, with your soul's purpose. So that's how important this aspect is to be able to have the clarity to be able to identify your problems. And one thing I will say that will come from identifying your problems, if you do this on a regular basis, is you'll gain more confidence, because you'll be able to see how things shift quickly. So cheers to being in sync. I am Kiannaa, and I help guide people to greater peace. Cheers.